So it's no longer news that the Senate has passed 4 major tax reform bills. The news now is that those bills could change the way we think about taxes in Nigeria.
That's right, Claire. Now, these are not just technical documents gathering dust. We're talking about bills that affect how taxes are collected, how we pay, and how government earns. The Joint Revenue Board, Nigeria Revenue Service, the Tax Administration, and of course, the main tax bill have all got the Senate's nod.
Some of the major highlights include a reduction in company income tax, updates to the personal income tax structure, of course, changes to VAT, the setting up of a tax appeal tribunal, and a tax ombudsman. So it's not just about paying, but also about protecting taxpayers' rights.
The idea is to make tax collection more transparent and efficient, to help grow the economy and ensure the government has more money to work with across all levels.
Absolutely. So now, as the harmonization phase begins, a joint Senate and House committee will tidy up the versions before it gets to President Tinubu's desk for assent.
Well, this is where we come in this morning. We'll be explaining what these tax reforms really mean, not just in policy language, but in everyday terms that affect your pocket and mine.
Exactly. Even if you are a salary earner, a small business owner, or even just trying to make sense of how government plans to fund its programs, today's program is certainly for you.
Of course, we'll be speaking with experts, looking at the bill's content and exploring their possible impact on the Nigerian economy. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. I'm Henry John. We're glad you're starting your day with us.
And I'm Claire Adilabu Abdul-Razak. You're watching us live on the network service of the NTA. The newspaper review will get to you shortly. But first, let's catch up with the highlights of the morning news with Tessie Omeri. Hello, Tessie.
Hello, Claire. Hello, Ian Ray. Good morning, Nigerians, and here is the morning news. The Federal Executive Council has directed government ministries, departments, and agencies to strengthen partnerships with the private sector, aiming to boost domestic businesses and stimulate economic growth. This directive was part of the key outcomes of the Council's meeting held on Monday. Additionally, the Council approved the Group Life Assurance Scheme for the 2025-2026 policy year, a move expected to provide enhanced security for public servants.
Our government is saying that there is the increasing need for people in the private sector to participate actively in our economic growth here as a nation, and therefore, wherever there are private sector players that can participate using their own funds, and we have seen an increased appetite.
President Bola Tinubu has inaugurated 2 newly appointed national commissioners of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The president also swore in 2 new board members of the Code of Conduct Bureau. 4 of them took oath of office before the president at the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting for this Monday. While Tukur Abdul-Razak Yusuf from Katsina State represents Northwest, Professor Sunday Aja from Ebonyi State is representing Southeast in the vacancies that existed in the Electoral Commission. Kenneth Ikpeme from Cross River State and Honorable Justice Ibrahim Buba retired from Taraba State are the new board members of the Code of Conduct Bureau. Nigeria is taking bold steps to construct digital highways and bridges that will carry micro, small and medium enterprises across borders into the heart of the African market. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this while inaugurating the Oversight Committee recently approved by President Tinubu to organize Nigeria's hosting of the 4th African Union Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Forum, scheduled to hold between June 23rd and 27 in Abuja. The House of Representatives says it will continue to enact laws that align with national development goals and have direct impact on the welfare of Nigerians. Speaker of the House, Abbas Tajuddin stated this at an inaugural national policy dialogue on the legislative agenda of the House of Representatives, which held in Abuja. 25 years after relying on just one forensic lab in Lagos, the NDLEA now has 2 additional state-of-the-art drug testing laboratories in Abuja and Enugu. The move follows a spike in drug seizures and is aimed at faster case processing and improved access to forensic services across regions. Chairman of the NDLEA, Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa, retired, said the new labs will significantly boost the agency's capacity to analyze, prosecute, and combat illicit drug trafficking. The Lagos facility has also been fully upgraded. These projects were supported by the U.S. Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs and implemented by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. In addition to new high-tech equipment, 20 forensic officers have now been trained and certified through a partnership with the Institute of Public Analysts of Nigeria. The NDLEA has also adopted international quality control standards through its partnership in UNODC's Global Assurance Program. The U.S. government further donated an advanced spectroscopy device to the Lagos lab. INL Director in Nigeria, Ms. Pradley, praised the collaboration and reaffirmed America's support. The equipment was received by senior NDLEA officials at the agency's Ikoyi Annex. The NDLEA says this marks a new chapter in its forensic and chemical monitoring drive. Now, the prevalence of out-of-school children bedeviling northeastern Nigeria can be tackled effectively if government at all levels and stakeholders continue to provide adequate funding to overcome challenges. This was part of recommendations made by stakeholders at the opening ceremony of a 2-week Train the Trainers workshop for 600 Zangaya and Islamic teachers within the northeastern states organized by the Nigeria Arabic Language Village, Ngala, in collaboration with the Northeast Development Commission. Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development Festus Keyamo launches the revised regulations on insurance for leased aircraft in Nigeria, aims to strengthen Nigeria's aviation and insurance industries and promote ease of doing business in the country. The federal government has launched a 300 billion naira sovereign sukuk insurance to accelerate the pace of infrastructural development across the country. NECA Oko reports that the sukuk, which is based on Islamic finance principles, offers investors a non-interest asset-backed investment opportunity. The National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, has reported significant progress in the ongoing airlift of Nigerian pilgrims for the 2025 Hajj pilgrimage, with 19% of pilgrims successfully airlifted in just 3 days. The Commission's efforts are yielding positive results. Here is an update on the airlift operations for this year's Hajj. That update will come your way in a subsequent bulletin. That's the news at this hour. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Claire and Ian Ray after this break. Have a beautiful day.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs. but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, one person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, one person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Some say learning is fun, but as a mom, I see how demanding it can be for my child. That's why I ensure he starts every day with a cup of Bonvita. Bonvita, prepare them to win every day.
Hear that? It's the roar of the crowd, the pulse of champions, the sound of history being made. Ogun State is ready to host the biggest sporting event of the year, the 22nd National Sports Festival, Gateway Games Ogun 2024. From May 16th to 30th, 2025, the nation's finest athletes will gather at the MKO Abiola Stadium, Abeokuta, and other sports centers in Ogun State. 33 sports, 36 states, and the FCT Gateway Games Ogun 2024, a celebration of sports, unity, and culture. Host, His Excellency, Governor Dapo Abiodun.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma-oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma-oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance oil. Good food, no worries.
We're live in the open market for Apic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Apic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Apic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Apic is better than bleach.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Exactly. One Supermalt after breakfast daily keeps us at our best.
Supermalt is specially formulated for today's man and woman. It has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity. shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service. Coming up next will be newspaper review.
We'll take a look at the papers that we have this morning. We'll begin with the Leadership newspaper. The Leadership here leads with PDP can't win 2027 presidential election, and that's credited to Wike, and that can be found on page 4. The writers to that story says selfish interest killing party. God of PDP is not sleeping, according to Wabara. We will soon receive you into APC, Ganduje tells Lamido. Interesting, of course, you want to see all of that. Page 4 has all the drama unfolding. Above that, JAMB engages VCs, experts to probe UTME mass failure. And just beside the picture story, we have the Federal Executive Council approves Medipol to cut drug prices. Details can be found on page 6. Below that, FG moves to tackle flight cancellations, delays, and Edo government threatens to sue new black movement leader. You want to find out the update from Edo State, page 4 would guide you. Non-performing institutions to lose TED fund support. That's also right here on the front page of the Leadership. Above the masthead, I remain INEC chair, no room for speculation. That's credited to Yakubu. And next to that, we have the Natasha Gates story, and the caption this time around says, Court hears Akpabio's contempt claims today. That's on page 7. And finally, from the front page of the Leadership this morning, we have cost-reflective pricing. Consumer groups fought with the government's tariff hike plan. All right, so that's so much we can take from the Leadership. Let's see what the Blueprint has in store this morning. The lead story here says Tinubu's reforms restoring stability to Nigeria's economy. That's according to the World Bank. And the writer says country recorded 30.4% growth in 2024. Lords improved transparency in NNPC Limited. And of course, the JAMB story is also right here, but the caption is different. It says 2025 UTME, JAMB engages experts to look into complaints. And below the picture story, we have 2027, that's the kicker. PDP will rise again, says Wabara Damagum. Party dead. Join APC, Ganduje tells Lamido. And that's on page 6. In the green strip at the bottom of the front page of the Blueprint this morning, we have federal government, NICOM, partner to improve investment in aviation sector. And above the masthead, we have National Orientation Agency backs de-radicalization of repentant Boko Haram members. All the details you can find on page 18. And of course, the IMF report is also right here. Nigeria has repaid $3.4 billion IMF COVID-19 loan. That's according to Idris. CBN disowns fraudulent claims, fictitious contractors. And finally, Flying Eagles qualify for World Cup after dramatic win over Senegal. And that's right here as far as sports is concerned in the Blueprint newspaper. Claire, what do you have?
All right, I have the Daily Times, and it has a strong a lead story on its front page. It says, Fubara can't decide for Rivers whether or not to return as governor, and this has been attributed to the residents. And of course, all the other stories, political stories that Henry has read are all also trending on the front page. Just below the picture story, you have Saraki 7-man committee to organize PDP NEC meeting May, national convention in August, and 4 die over cholera outbreak in Plateau State. And just above the nameplate, 2027, doom awaits PDP without reforms. That's Wiki. LP begs Tinubu to rein in Governor Oti over alleged threats to Abure NWC members. I think this is the outlook of the Daily Times newspaper this morning. First, we must, of course, do apologize on behalf of Chukwudi Kolubaja, who is unavoidably absent. So Yere and I will, do the much that we can, trying to look at the newspapers. Of course, all the papers, have political stories. Yere, you look at from the leadership to the blueprint, maybe except the blueprint that is leading with an economic story. But of course, it has the PDP story right there. One would, say that probably, well, all the banters among politicians and all that is expected, but not at this time.
Exactly.
When, the political process has not yet, been opened. We'll still have, next year for this. So you begin to wonder what may happen, next year if we're having this heated debate, among politicians.
I agree with you that the timing may not be right, but you see, it looks like politicians are businessmen. They're trying to plan early.
No. Business is quite different. Business
no,
is
I mean,
quite
like
different.
this is what they do for a living. So I mean, they have to start any time. They're not checking the clock.
No. The political process is regulated, and INEC has the sole authority to declare when political rhetorics or political, whichever way you call it, should begin. And it is the sole authority, that's why it is there. So unlike business, that is regulated by the free market, So as a businesswoman, I know you are, you have your liberty to plan, how your business will be. But as a politician,
you have to wait for INEC.
You have to wait for INEC.
Oh, well, parties have to plan ahead.
To wait for INEC.
Because, I mean, the timeline when INEC is ready is usually very short. No. So political parties are trying to plan ahead.
It's quite different from, from the, PDP is dead. All the rhetorics we are having, between the political parties and all that. Another thing I think I'd just like to point out is the lead story of the leadership. It says PDP can't win 2027 presidential election Wike, and we must not take that lead out of context. There is a rider, that qualifies what Minister Wike is saying, and he says selfish interest killing party.
So, and the god of PDP is not sleeping. That's coming from
well,
Wabara.
that's Wabara's response. But I just like to say that so that people do not begin to take this lead out of context. There was a rider to that, So because Minister Wike is not a prophet, so he wouldn't know what is ahead. But he's saying selfish interest because he said in another paper that if reforms, the Daily Times, if reforms are not, taken by the party, that may happen. And which are the story that we have? Okay, Tinubu's reforms, restoring stability to Nigeria's economy. This is good news. Says country recorded 3.4% growth in 2024. Lots improved transparency in NNPC Limited. I think this is something that coming from the World Bank,
of course,
should give Nigerians, some positive reflection. That the reforms restoring stability in our economy and, of course, growth 3.4%. So this should be something that we will begin to look at, the variables, the dynamics that have led, that have played out. I think it will be good to look at this, and know how they are being implemented, and, of course, so that Nigerians would understand, some of these, economic measures and all that.
All right, and of course, just to add to that, looking at the repaid loan, that's a caption here in the blueprint. Of course, that's like one of the things you want to say that the government is doing that is, playing a major role in how the economy is doing. I mean, being able to repay your loan while you're still trying to stabilize the economy. I mean, it's
I don't know about you, but I don't know how I feel when I owe. You know, I have sleepless nights, so I don't know how countries, you know, or, I mean, companies will do, but this is good news, you know, for every Nigerian, that we're taking back, you know, our debts, and this is the COVID-19 loan, $3.4 billion from IMF. So all the talks about, you know, hey, Nigeria's loan to GDP, Nigeria's loan to GDP. So this is good. But just before we go, UTME, JAM says, according to this paper, the blueprint, that it will engage experts to look into complaints. Parents have really come out.
Mass failure, a big issue.
Yes, to raise issues about, you know, the mass failure, and of course the technical, you know, complaints, technical issues or glitches that happened. And JAM is saying it will engage experts to look into the complaints. I think this is the way to go. This is a good response, and I think it should, you know, calm, you know, the nerves of parents and all those involved. Well, one quick story here. Yeah. You know, the approval of Melipol by the Federal Executive Council to cut drug prices. I think that's a good way, you know, to go, considering what people are having to go through in the health sector. The cost of drugs, I mean, for those who depend on it every day, it's really killing. So, I mean, if this works, well, I think it would help. Yeah, the cost of drugs, yes. The Ministry of Health is really doing a lot, you know, at least I'm privy to what the minister, you know, had dished out. Said the Ministry of Health is doing a lot to encourage local production, you know, of pharmaceutical products here in Nigeria, so that prices, you know,
can drop.
Yes, yes. And
fantastic.
Probably when that takes shape, we'll begin to see that affected in the price of pharmaceutical products. Okay, so Henry, I think we're asked to. We've tried. Chukwudi, we'll have to share Chukwudi's pain
for today. Exactly.
All right, Chukwudi, get well soon. We'll hope to see you back here on your feed.
Oh yes.
Henry.
All right, so we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get into the conversation. We're talking about the tax reform bills. You want to stay put for this one? Stay with us.
I therefore call on my colleagues, or media professionals and editors, to be discerning in their reportage. We must deny these groups the undue publicity they crave. We must take them off the front pages and accurately report them as the criminals that they are, without glorifying their acts or giving credence to their false narratives. These, of course, are not freedom fighters. They are murderers, kidnappers, and destroyers, and they must be presented as such.
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
Good, tasty food is worth living for. Worried about your oil every time you enjoy your favorite meal? Introducing Smart Balance. Smart Balance rice bran oil is rich in gamma oryzanol. Several studies suggest that gamma oryzanol may contribute to the reduction of bad cholesterol. Golden Terra Smart Balance oil. Good food, no worries.
The future belongs to the dreamers, to the doers, to those who are not afraid of the side hustle. It's for those who are ready to turn their passion into something big. And to help keep you revitalized and inspired, Top Tea is with you every step of the way. You are made for more. Find your inspiration. Top Tea, big round bags of flavor.
Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So, spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our number one choice.
Emeka, you come into my home and you see me and my family enjoying our golden morn, and you still proceed to talk about business.
Emma, it is very, very serious.
Yes, so there is serious news. Introducing the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 with milk already inside for your creamy, nutritious enjoyment. Get the new Golden Morn 3-in-1 for your family.
From Nestle.
So why do you need Dettol 12-hour protective shield?
Why? Come. Let me show you. From my husband's germ-filled journey to work, till his daily interaction, touching where everyone has touched, and the sweaty journey back home.
What else can give you all day long protection?
Germs are everywhere, but Dettol's 12-hour protective shield shields your family every day,
Keeping them safe, healthy, happy, and successful.
Dettol, be 100% sure.
The world needs moms. With a splash of Golden Terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Change no thanks into yes please. Resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty family meals is all that matters. Where there are moms, there is love. Golden Terra oil, for pure love.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand, we bet solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Each ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation. We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
All right, welcome back. You're on to Good Morning Nigeria. There's so much going on in the background, but we have a lot to unpack when we, discussions around tax and reform bills, come up. And I was just confessing to Yere, it's not my favorite topic, but that is why we're here, to look at it, to unpack the passage of the tax reform bills, so many issues, whether it's 2, whether it's 4, and how many really are they. And of course, just to lead us into our conversation, we'd like to listen to the background report that's been packaged by our correspondent, Ibrahim Danhamidu.
They say nothing is certain except death and taxes. But in Nigeria, even taxes haven't always been that certain. That may be about to change. The Senate has passed a set of 4 groundbreaking tax reform bills, a move many see as the boldest attempt yet to clean up, modernize, and rewire Nigeria's tax system. At the heart of this legislative package is the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill 2024, laying out how taxes will be assessed, collected, and shared across all tiers of government. There's also the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, which proposes a new central agency, one designed not just to collect revenue, but to promote taxation as a pillar of national growth. Then comes the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, targeting coordination between federal and subnational governments for more efficient tax collection. And finally, the Nigeria Tax Bill, introducing a fresh tax framework focused on boosting revenue and economic development. Some of the deadline provisions are a proposed VAT sharing formula. That is 10% to the federal government, 55% to the states and the FCT, and 35% to local governments. There are new penalties for non-compliance, with fines and jail time for tax evasion. And a revamped leadership structure, with the President as chair of the Revenue Board and an executive vice chairman heading day-to-day operations. Next, a harmonized committee will align the Senate's version with that of the House of Representatives. Once that's done, the unified bills will head to the President for assent. Analysts say if fully implemented, this could be a turning point. Cleaner collections, fairer distribution, and more trust in the system. But they also warn, laws on paper are one thing, delivery is another. Nigeria's tax future is being rewritten. The ink is fresh, the expectations high. Good Morning Nigeria is here to unpack it all. Stay with us.
Many thanks, Ibrahim Dan Hamido. Indeed, the ink is fresh and expectations are extremely very high. Fantastic. Many thanks for that background report. Now joining us right here in the studio to discuss the passage of the tax reform bills. It's a pleasure to welcome right here in the studio Professor Paul Nnamchi, member House Committee on Finance, member House of Representatives representing Enugu East and Isiuzo Federal Constituency, all the way from Enugu State. Many thanks for joining us,
Thank you so much.
Like Claire would say, Honorable Prof. All right. Also here with us is a professor and, of course, a regular guest on the program, Professor Uche Waleke, Professor of Finance, Professor of Capital Market, Nasarawa State University. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigeria.
Like we said, you know, before we came on air, that you're beginning to look like a politician and a professor all in one. No, it's rubbing off.
Please, that's my lecture. I don't go there so that I don't get.
You're losing him to politics very soon.
So that I get good grades, you know. So that I get good grades. Prof, it's always good to don't listen to her. But of course, let me introduce Yushau Aliyu. I mean, he's a familiar face, you know, always on Good Morning Nigeria, or you can catch him, of course, on Nigeria Today, which is, of course, a program on NTA News 24. Yushau Aliyu, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, let's quickly start with Professor, and we must add, but that's not professional now, Honorable. It's a mark of respect. Yes, Paul Nnamchi, because he's a member House Committee on Finance and also representing Enugu East and Isiuzo Federal Constituency, Enugu State. So we'd like to start with you. Please help us unpack these tax reform bills. We hear 4, we hear 2, we hear, you know, and the harmonization between the Senate and the House of Reps. You know, just unpack it for us so that we understand what we're, you know, expecting.
Well, first, I will just say that there are 4 bills, of which is also presidential executive bills. These bills have been to the House. Initially, there was a lot of controversy, but now, by the sheer act of from the National Assembly, there was a lot of dialogue, and thank God today there's a bit of harmonization, there's a bit of regional balance. Everybody from the states, some nationals and also the federal, they seem to be in the same page at the moment. And the House of Representatives have also last year wouldn't finish their own bill, and now I think yesterday or so, 2 days ago, graciously the Senate has now concluded theirs. Among these bills, there's the change. Well, all the FRS will now be National Revenue Service. There's the establishment bill. There's 2 establishment bills. Then the other one will be the I won't mention our name, but there are 4. But most importantly, what is of interest to the public is what are they getting from there? What is the stabilization? However, it's not yet a bill. It's not yet
it's not a law. It's not an act.
Because it hasn't been assented to. Because when it comes to that assent after harmonization, however, I don't think there isn't much things to be
harmonized.
They seem to be similar in approach from the house, from both houses. There's a lot of new things that is coming out, like development levies, and also the threshold of income has also increased. That's if you earn less than 800,000, you're not supposed to pay tax. That's tax exempt, but it's also progressive, which is also very important. There's also things about for business. The CIT has also changed, maybe up to 50 million instead of the usual 25 million. So we're expecting that after assent, there will be a lot of maybe passing the first implementation model hurdles, which is usually the case. And after that threshold, I expect there will be some gain for the individual, and also some essential household and essential items has also been exempt from tax. So, which means one expects that there will be some changes in the stability in pricing and also the condition of living in the country. Maybe I think it's becoming a bit simpler, and that's why most of those tax bills we are breaking into 4, whereby there's a combination, but there's input from the state, there's input from the federal. So merging both, I think there will be some good traction in the society, I hope.
All right, many thanks, Prof, for your opening comments. Let's get to Professor Waleke now. I'd like to hear what you think about this tax reform. Of course, we've had you, several times talk about this, but now that it's been signed by the Senate, and of course, we're expecting the House of Reps to do the same, and of course, eventual passage. How would these bills, impact Nigeria's economy, particularly in terms of revenue generation and economic growth?
I think it's going to be positive. There's no gain, saying that. If you look at our current situation, tax to GDP ratio is, very low, among the least in sub-Saharan Africa, at less than 10%. The target is to, get it to as high as 15%, which is the average that you find, or even, 18%. There's no doubt that if the government, has more revenue, that will also put the government in a stronger position to, other things being equal, deliver the dividends of, democracy. So I think it's going to be positive. If you look at our current tax laws, this point has been made over and over. They are archaic, they are outdated. So what this has done is to attempt to modernize them. If the omnibus tax law there, which is the Nigerian tax bill, just as he rightly said, there are 4 of them. The Nigerian tax bill attempts to consolidate, the myriads of taxes that we have, into one document. Today, a typical businessman will have to, be struggling with several tax laws. It's the company's income tax, the withholding tax, capital gains tax, this tax. So this particular one, Nigerian tax bill, now consolidates them. So you now can have one reference point where you can go and determine what the tax is. So I think it's a good move, particularly again when you look at the fact that the business environment for a typical business person is choking. One of the reasons why that is so is also because of the multiplicity of taxes, and so the aim is also to streamline all these multiple taxes, so that the taxpayer, can see tax. One of the principles of tax is that is that of certainty, is that of simplicity. A good tax system should be simple. So that is the overarching, if you like, objective of this tax bill. So I think it's going to be a positive note, particularly so now that the government is talking about Nigeria first. Okay, you can't talk about Nigeria first. Trying to encourage, production, patronizing Nigerian goods, when the productive activity is being hampered by, multiple taxes. And then, just as you also mentioned, by the time you reduce the taxes individuals are paying, you have a progressive tax system that, which is such that your personal income tax is now, particularly for low-income earners, is now reduced. What does that do? It will increase their disposable income. And once disposable income is increased, you should also expect that should translate into improved economic activity, in the country. Only yesterday, the World Bank, was talking about an improvement in the GDP projection for Nigeria, to 3.7%. Recall that the IMF had put the GDP growth rate at 3%. So for us to even attain that GDP growth rate, there needs to be, improvement in aggregate demand. And part of how that will happen is where you try to reduce the tax burden, on the taxpayers, which is also what I think these tax bills are geared to do, to reduce the tax burden, not only on the part of the, the business owner, but also on the part of low-income earners. That's important.
All right, Prof, thank you. Yushao, I know Prof has talked from the perspective of a professor of capital market. You will now break it down so that the people will understand what we're talking about. This is, a bill that has generated so much controversy to the extent that even the governor's, platform, came hard on it. So now that the, two arms of the National Assembly, have, passed the bills and are about to harmonize, how do you evaluate that, and what does this harmonization, what will it mean for, for every Nigerian, including you and me?
To educate, I will start from you, because you are an adherent of tax evasion. But what? No. Okay. Now, but apathy. Let me change the word. Naturally, not you alone. Naturally,
this stems, this apprehension, stems from, academic process. In the past, those of us who are arts inclined, anything that has calculation, would tend to, are you with me?
I'm not with you.
So,
I'm not with you.
Okay, so because she studied sciences, I'm a pure art student. So
from the economic
but I do pay my taxes.
We are friends to figures, and taxes. There is no way. When you talk of society, you are speaking about family. But those within the family knows what it takes to be part of a family structure. The same thing applies to an economy. When you take taxation, no state can function without taxes. Okay. That is the first thing. But it is natural behavior of human beings to shy away from paying taxes. That is why taxes are coming in two different directions, direct and indirect. People pay more of indirect taxes. They don't care because they are maximizing their own satisfaction. And that is why it is coming in form of value added. So, but let me be simplistic enough to emphasize that tax reform, the procedure that has been in the National Assembly, was a very holistic one. In fact, when the bill was submitted to the National Assembly, the entire nation was divided. Who is going to be a beneficiary? Nobody is shouting about payment of taxes. Everybody was shouting on how he is going to benefit, or his state will benefit, or his regime will benefit. So that brought a broader perspective as regard to this tax reform and what people are expecting. The content of it, if you go from the from the generation to distribution, your main concern is the usage. And that is a concern of general taxpayers. President of a state shy from paying taxes. We have seen that in bigger economies. Wealthy individuals try as much as possible to limit how they pay taxes. But when it comes to profit proportion, they declare it with elegance. We have declared billions and billions in profit. And that is why the component of the new tax reform, in my own study, I understood that, one, it is holistic in nature because it has taken into consideration both the vertical perspective and horizontal perspective in terms of the generation, the application of distribution. But our own concern is not those who are exempted out of it, but how efficient these revenues that are going to be distributed are going to efficiently be used to bring about that economic growth. Because the main concept behind this tax reform is to have an economic reform that will be inclusive and at the same time that will involve every sector of the economy and every individual in the economy.
You see, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you that what Nigerians would probably, be more interested in how, the benefit aspect of it.
Yes.
But again, we're looking at the 4 different bills.
Yeah.
Let's begin with the tax administration.
Yeah.
The administration of, the governance of it. And explain to us, how this would probably address the issue of multiple taxation that go on at all levels across the whole sector. Is this just going to be, a new tax system in name, just a change of nomenclature?
No, at all. Before this reform, there were a lot of controversy of applying different taxes, state, federal, and local. In some cases, let me give a good example of Abuja City today. Large number of those who are paying pay as you earn are working in Abuja, but they are residing in either Niger State or Nasarawa State, in some extent Kogi State. Now, there were a lot of conflict in terms of administration by the Joint Tax Board. Now, what proportion and who is taking the larger or who is taking the salaries of somebody who is sleeping in another state or working in FCT? So that controversy remains a very serious loophole as far as tax management is concerned. But this new tax has come up with establishment, and it has come also with an arbiter who will now look at, if you have a complaint, either as taxpayer or tax collector, you can go and administer the conflict amicably. And that is why instead of having joint tax board, we are having joint revenue. Because the concept general is the derivation of revenue and distribution of revenue based on agreed percentage as specified by the reform. So in administering, 2 concepts are very critical. Who is going to be the chairperson? Who are those going to be elected from the 6 geopolitical zones? And what are the criteria? And at the end of the day, not only those principal officers who are to administer the tax in Nigeria, what are those measures that can remove any erring officer who will be found wanting in doing one thing or the other that is contrary to the harmonization and execution of the tax principles as enshrined in the new bill?
So, I don't know if Prof, I want you to also explain to us how you know, that multiple taxation, you know, challenge will be addressed by this new tax administration, you know, bill. He has just told us, you know, for instance, like the example he gave, someone working in Abuja and residing, let's say, in Nasarawa, if he or she has a, you know, tax problem or issue, he will now have to go to maybe a tax tribunal and lodge his complaint, and then it will take another process, you know, to look into the complaints. I don't understand. You help us and make sense out of all of this.
I think there's also some areas I think that I will just put up very well. Each state has a representative, but each region has also representatives.
Representative where?
In the establishment, the NRS, that's the Nigeria Revenue Service.
Okay.
So in this case, so you have, apart from the tribunal, you also have the state representatives to also go and air for some of those grievances. So, but when it starts, it becomes something that cannot be shelved or solved or explained at the first instance. Then that's why nobody goes to the tribunal first. There's the other places you have to explore. You try to explore some of those things that might actually give you the answer you want before you start moving to. However, you also look at what he just said about sleeping the other side, and also actually the tax bill also provide for where those money is being spent, where you're earning those money, and where you're spending it, distribution of the states. The states have an input. Usually FIRS is just the federal and it has also come this double taxation where state will ask you for this, federal will ask you for this. You end up paying a whole sum of money. But now, you now have that ability that this, because most time before now, it is difficult, and that's why somehow, myself, I was so happy with the controversies that came with it. The controversy came with it, but also awareness becomes also more plausible, because the controversies made a lot of people to actually be aware. They also have benefit to derive from paying tax. It isn't about that this tax is being used for government, but it's also, you also have some benefits that comes from, like Nile Fund has also been, gets their money from the Lemon Fund, and there are a lot of other things, Debt Fund too and others. There's a lot of benefit for the people. And what we're not talking about is how is it going to be implemented? What is the timeline after assent? But also, you also look at, there are certain thresholds. There's people in several places that when they carry their vehicle, maybe the keke and come, people tax them. But you also have to find out how much does he earn. In a year, does he get up to 800? Because I think the threshold now is 800. I think that is zero. After 800, it becomes 15%, 10%, 15%, 25%, as the threshold may be. They also have things like the global standard, where certain multinational companies are taxed differently. You also have tax incentives, like and grants. How many persons know that the federal government also offer grants for companies? These are some of the things that are in the bill that you can see as a bit encompassing. It is not only that the government is taxing it, but inside the bill, you also know where the money is going to.
Okay.
Because where the money is going to also makes it something. Like you said, a lot are not talking about where the money is generated, but what is coming to us.
All right.
But not.
Many thanks, Professor Namche. Let's get to Professor Obaleke now. Professor Namche talked about the benefits. I'd like to know what sectors you expect will benefit most, from these reforms, and then how do SMEs, small and medium-scale enterprises, how are they impacted, by these reforms?
Yeah. Well, one is even the attempt to, streamline the multiplicity of taxes. If you look at what happens currently, a typical SME or even MSME, pays millions of taxes, officially as high as 60, officially, unofficially over 200. taxes. So what this has done is to streamline all those taxes to not more than 9 single digits. Okay, so going forward, you don't expect that a small business owner, okay, will be paying, those taxes as many as 60. I talked about certainty initially, so he knows the taxes to pay, and he prepares for them. Okay, so that is one way it is going to impact, especially small businesses. And for the individuals, I mentioned it earlier, particularly the payee. Under the payee, again, low-income earners now tend to be exempt. Okay, those earning less than 800,000 will also be exempt. So that will also have the effect, as I mentioned earlier, increase their disposable income. Yes, the point has been made. Remember when I started my opening comments, I said that when you asked about how it's going to impact the economy, and I said it's going to be positive in the sense that we expect, and I used the word, I said, other things being equal, we expect that more tax revenue should also translate to, more, development, particularly now that what is happening to oil price. Oil price is not reliable. The only sustainable means of government revenue today, sustainable means, okay, ought to be, taxes, not oil revenue, not even borrowing. Again, we also know, our debt burden, especially given our debt burden. So when I say other things being equal, it's also an assumption that the taxes that will be collected by the government at all, all tiers will be effectively used. Now, there is a point I want to also make here, and that point is that the committee that did this work, by the way, I want to commend them for the effort they put in. The committee that did this work is the Presidential Fiscal Committee, Committee and Tax Reform. So it is not, the committee didn't just do work on taxes. The focus now appears to be on taxes, revenue. The committee also worked on the entire spectrum of fiscal policy, including spending. So there is also a recommendation on how to spend this money when it is received. So, and that is why I think the two sides should also be taken together. Okay, revenue is coming in, that's the tax. Okay, and then how it should also be spent. And that's why, to my knowledge, I'm aware that there are recommendations with respect to, for example, what should be put in the budget. Okay, today, how do we do our budgets? You prepare your budget, you estimate that you're going to do 2.06 million barrels per day as we have in the 2025 budget, and then you now multiply that by whatever the oil price is and say that will be your oil revenue. Whereas in actual fact, okay, the number of barrels that you say you want to do, maybe half of it has already been mortgaged, okay, involved in a crude oil swap. For example, if you are producing 1 million barrels per day and you had made an arrangement for the next 6 years to give a particular, company or country where you borrowed money, half of that, when you are doing your budget, you wouldn't use it doesn't make sense to use 1 million. But that is what we have been doing. So part of that recommendation is that face reality. If your actual revenue that's going to come in, if the actual production, less what you have mortgage, is say 500, that is what you should use. Because if you don't do that, it will reflect in the overall budget deficit. That's why you find government always, borrowing, okay? And that doesn't speak to transparency. So my point is, yes, we have recommendations now with respect to taxes, how to, grow taxes, okay? And also in the process, seize the opportunity to formalize small businesses, because by saying that you are exempting any business whose turnover is not up to 50 million, you are exempting them, they're not going to pay, okay? That also says that it's on the condition that those businesses must be registered. So yes, you're not paying tax, but we still want you to be registered because we need your records, we need your data. Okay, so that is one way to formalize businesses, and government through that can also now monitor them, can also now support them to help them grow to the point where they now come into the tax nets so that they can now pay tax. So that is the whole idea. So it's important that you, as I said earlier on, you're not only looking at one side of it. You see, fiscal policy is about two sides. You have revenue, you have spending. There's also the public debt angle. Now the focus is on what revenue. Okay, I'm also saying here there should also be attention on what the money should be spent on, which I'm just telling you now that the committee has also made a recommendation on how to be thrifty, on how to ensure that whatever comes in is also well accounted for, is also well applied.
Okay, just to let the viewer know that you can also send in your questions, what you need to know, what you don't understand about this reform, tax reform bill. The number to send your SMS is right there on the screen. Please send in, indicate your name and where you're sending your SMS from. And of course, our guests here in the studio will give us their response to them. But again, let me still stay with Professor Owaleke. I know that when eventually this bill is assented, a lot of things would happen, to the existing, tax laws. We've talked about the company income tax that will be affected. These are some of the laws. Of course, that will be repealed. I don't know. That's what I wanted to tell us what will happen. What will happen to VAT? What will happen to personal income tax? What will happen to the stamp duties and all that? So how will this bill now, if it does get presidential assent, impact on some of these existing tax laws?
Yes, as I said earlier on, the Nigerian tax bill has attempted to consolidate all of those taxes. So what will now happen is that the new rates, will now apply. The new rates with respect to all of them will apply. In the case of companies' income tax, for example, there was a recommendation to drop companies' income tax from 30% to 25% in 2025. It was there. Yes, but both the Senate and the House of Reps did not buy that. So, okay. So so what I got was that it was a trade-off thing. Remember, there was a recommendation to move value-added tax from 7.5 to 12.5 by Senate, and then later 15%. The original recommendation said 7.5 to 15% over a period of time, but Senate passed 12.5. House of Reps dropped it, said it should be retained. I think right now the Senate too has also agreed, so it's going to be 7.5 for VAT, so no increase for VAT. All right. The sharing formula, which was also very contentious, again, there appears to be harmony. Remember, the committee had recommended basis of the place of consumption as the major derivation to be moved to 60% from the current 20%, which was highly controversial. But the National Assembly reduced it, House reduced to 30%. Now the derivation is now 30%. So there's also an increase from 20 to 30. But if you look at the vertical distribution of VAT, what was recommended, currently it is 15% for the federal government, 55% for the states.
The states and local government.
Yes. No, 35% for states. Yes, for local government.
For local government.
And
35% for local government.
Yes, and 50% for states. No,
55.
50% for states currently. Yeah, but the recommendation is that the federal government should now sacrifice 5%. So federal government has been reduced to 10%, while the 5% of federal has now been moved to states. Okay, so this new rate now will now apply. So what it means is that for VAT sharing now, the states and local governments will now have more money than the federal government. So that will apply. For personal income tax, for example, the new policy will also apply. The same thing with...
There's the sharing formula now.
No, the sharing formula for VAT, I talked about it. Okay. The new one is what will apply.
Okay.
And it is expected that by that new one, states will have more money. Okay? So when states will have more money, and even when you use the new derivation principle, it's also expected that a lot of states will have more money. And any state that may have any shortfall, for example, from the personal income tax, the new rate for personal income tax. You know, personal income tax is collected by states, and that is why it is said that the principle is that of place of residence. So it is where you are residing that you are paying your tax for payee, principal place of residence. So if by implementing the new payee that says those earning up to below 800 will no longer pay tax, okay, who bears the shortfall? It is the state that used to collect the tax.
Remember that those who earn above that 800 will now, there was an increase in the percentage of tax they're going to pay.
Yes, but the point is that the
people
base.
like Nyere and I will now be paying ×2 of what we're paying now.
Yes, the point is that the base, a lot of people fall within that base. Very low income earners, 800 will no longer pay. So if you do the math, it's possible that in a few states or in certain states, the revenues they are getting from payee may drop because you have increased that threshold. Before it was first 300. You must pay tax no matter your level of income. But now it's saying once you are earning less than that, you don't pay. So some states will be affected. All right, but those states will also now be compensated, if you like, from the money, additional money that will now come from VAT.
VAT.
Yes, and additional money that will also come from, a more effective way of collecting. No, even the FAC revenue. FAC revenue is talking about the company's income tax. Remember, the Federal Inland Revenue Service is going to be is going to go and be replaced by the National Nigerian Revenue Service. Okay, that Nigerian Revenue Service will now collect taxes. Okay, for the company's income tax, petroleum income tax, all these taxes, even the taxes, but the VAT too will be collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service. Currently, VAT is collected by Federal Inland Revenue Service. VAT is also collected by the customs. Customs collect import VAT. So you can see this, again, duplications create leakages. So the new tax law is saying, let there be just one central. Yes, collect tool for efficiency. So, and that should translate again into a bigger pot. So when they collect all of that, there'll be more money for FAC, to share. So more states, ultimately, states will get more revenues at the end of the day.
Professor Waleke, I'm thinking about this exemption you talked about, that those below 800,000 will not be taxed. With the current minimum wage, it's not likely that any civil servant will fall around that 800,000. Even if they are, it will be very few. And we know that those
no, what is 70 times 12.
70 times 12 is 800 and
yes, that was actually used in calculating the threshold.
So that's to say that an average civil servant is not exempted from taxation. That's what it means.
Yes, you at least when calculating determining your tax, your tax liability, at least that first this thing will be knocked off. So you end up paying, something.
That's my point. So my point is, with this new taxation, with this, this 800,000 exemption, we know that those who are that you can easily tax. That your tax is deducted from source. You don't argue with that because every other person, the private companies and the rest, of course, it affects everyone, the minimum wage and all. So, of course, those under government's payroll, no one is exempted from taxation. Yeah. And, like Claire was trying to say, with this increase, we're likely going to be paying more. So I'm thinking, how does this really benefit the average Nigerian? Because, with what we earn, we're likely going to be paying more, right?
Yes, it's...
So how does it benefit the average worker?
Yes, it benefits the average. It is progressive. If it is actually progressive, if you check the scale, the burden, the real weight, is on people earning, as much as high as I think 50 million. So it is on the real high income earners. The burden is on the high income earners if you look at the scale. Okay? And that's why some people will even argue that it is only states like Lagos that will benefit from that kind of scheme, because that is where you have the high income earners. The low income earners, going by the scale, the progressive scale.
Do these high income earners pay tax? How do we
Yes.
how is
that is part of what this reform is all about, you know, to ensure that they, you know, they now begin to pay tax. A lot of digital tools will be used to ensure that they pay tax. Okay, particularly leveraging their BVN, NIN, and all of that to ensure that the rich, okay, the very high income earners that used to evade tax, that becomes. So when the government is talking about increasing the tax to GDP ratio or boosting revenue as a result of these reforms, the focus is on the high income. The focus is on plugging the loopholes, the leakages, not increasing the tax rates, not increasing the tax burden. Okay, that's the way I understand it. Not increasing tax burden on the low income earners.
You see, a lot of people have really applauded, the tax reform bill, but principally because of what it will generate into government coffers. And as Ray rightly puts, in fact, we've got some, questions already, coming in. How might this affect? Because, I mean, whatever policy or whatever, law you enact, you must, also take cognizance of how it will affect, the people you represent in terms of what is in their pocket and what they can get and the dividends they can get. If you collect from them, you expect that, they expect that you will use the taxes for their benefit. And people are asking, someone has just asked, how about civil servants who earn less than 2 million naira a year? Will they pay the new tax if passed? Engineer Uyi Willis Osaibuvo from Bagada in Lagos says, this tax reform bill, does it affect CAC or is it just for personal or government? Although Engineer Umoyang from Jos is saying that it's imploring the government to religiously implement the law, block all leakages, and says it will help improve our revenue by extension, the economy. So please, Yushak, please help us make sense of all of this in terms of the ordinary Nigerians, who are not exempted or will not be exempted, from this tax reform.
An ordinary Nigerian, let us make it clearer. An ordinary Nigerian is exempted to pay taxes that are proportionate to income less than 800,000. But does not exempt him from paying VAT by consuming powder milk that is built and sold in the same market.
I have a question here. Maybe I should read that so that it will guide your response.
Yeah.
This one here says, the women under the hot sun on the streets are given tickets to pay as a form of tax. And you cannot explain who gets it and how it is accounted for. Tax is not the problem. Rather, the problem has always been how taxpayers' monies have been exempted. So, anyways, I'm reading this, to relate with your below 800,000, because I mean, the woman selling pepper on the street may not make up to 800,000 in a year.
Exactly.
So, but we know that local government, states, and all that have a way of taxing these people. Is that going to stop with this new law?
You see, IGR is classified. This new tax is just emphasizing in trying to bring all taxes together and then jointly administer it. But that does not remove not only taxes by local government. There are a lot of taxes associated in different names. They can call it levy. They can call it any name, by even trade unions. Do you understand? So this bill is coming to make it more safer to understand tax and also to build your confidence to seek redress where you are not comfortable. But however, as rightly guided, taxes, one good quality of tax is principle of quid pro quo, returns benefit. So taxes are paid for services. These services are not classified. It can be security, it can be social services, it can be education. So, but however, in understanding the concept of taxation relative to individual contribution to the payment of taxes, Professor has highlighted, one, even those SMEs that are operated at lower cadre, below certain minimum standard,
we still pay levies.
They can pay some levies attached to their communities. Let me give you, for instance, if you are to pay security levy in, do you understand? It's still tax, but not official by government. Taxes can be paid to government, and that is why government is now putting revenue service to collect on its behalf. But taxes are paid to religious institutions. Taxes are paid to cultural groups. Taxes are paid to local communities. So all these combinations are combination of taxes, and they are multiple and they are in high number. But obviously, as we are operating, this new bill, what this bill will do is to sanitize some of the most predominant taxes, like the value-added tax for consuming.
What about the ones, the arbitrary taxes imposed on communities in conflict-prone areas? Will this bill also address those?
Some are not taxing even within the within law. Let me give you an example. Federal road, you go and meet individuals on the road, blocking and then collecting.
Exactly.
So what do you do with that? But it's not tax. But for tax to be more efficient, for tax to be more productive, there must be a legislation to that. And there must be instrument of collection and distribution. But what I want people to understand, especially in relation to who is exempted and who is not, I am putting this record straight, that most of the indirect taxes, nobody is exempted in paying indirect taxes for enjoying services.
We're talking about indirect
electricity, for instance.
Let's talk about indirect tax. There's this message here that's coming all the way from Taraba State, Lord Danzine Katswen. It says, how does the tax reform impact the ease of moving agricultural products from one region to another within the country? I mean, paying multiple taxation before arriving at the destination of offloading your goods. Does the tax reform correct the multiplicity of these taxes?
No, it has not attended to that one. Because moving at... I think so. Yeah.
You know, I talked about the aim of the tax, the bill, the proposed bill to streamline taxes. Now, at the end of the day, okay, it makes an offense for you to impose any tax or levy outside the ones already approved, outside the ones stipulated in the law. So going forward, okay, any government agency that imposes any tax or levy outside of the ones stipulated, okay, will be disallowed.
State governments, you mean?
Yes. No, even the person talked about moving goods from one point to another. Yes. So you cannot now start mounting roadblocks.
So who implements this? How do we check this?
The states. The various states will do it. And the federal and the other. Sorry,
I mean, are we going to have tax officers stopping people from paying?
Of course, there will be a lot of. There will be people employed under NRS. That's the one placing that. That's why you used to have representatives from states and representatives from region. But above that, I will also say that the other benefits that are also accruing that we've not actually checked. Tax are exempt from some health material, educational material, and some agricultural materials. This is also going to be of benefit to individuals. Like if you say the sanitary activities, sanitary products, tax exempt from it. So most educational material like books, tax exempt from it. So there's also a lot of benefit in that case for individuals.
No job losses, no business closures arising from this bill?
No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't lead to job losses, but it also lead to employment. Because people who collect this, people will also have to go for this. You can't collect this without individuals. So there will be employment.
But Prof, in your own view, what challenges do you envisage in all of this, in the implementation of these reforms?
The challenges I have said, well, there will be hiccups in the first time. Because people are not, people are opposed to change most of the time. Or the human being are usually opposed to change. First, there will be that drawback. Why am I going to pay this? Why are you taxing me? But when people start seeing benefits, because I think many people will pay, or will pay their taxes when they see what is coming out of it. After all, people in the church will pay tithe without asking, what is my tithe being used for? But in this case, this is government that's going to build road for you. This government that needs to, you ask for hospital and all those things to be built. Government has to get money somewhere to do that. So it is just also another changing our mindset and perception about taxes.
Besides changing mindset and perception, have you thought about the fact that the reach that this bill aims to target may not be, I mean, I'm just thinking, how do you want to really, someone who earns 50 million, how do you want to know? I mean, he has...
I think you have an account. You have an NIM.
No, but you know the way rich people do their things. Is it about the accounts?
Yes, I think the question should even be, how does this, bill, or how will these bills address the issue of tax evasion, especially, natural companies, institutions, government agencies, MDAs. We've seen a lot of these big companies evading tax. So how will this address
the big companies you're talking about has this multinational standard. That's a global standard. When you earn, I think, $970 million there is a standard that is global.
But we've seen some of them not remitting their tax.
Of course, you also have to do your work to check it. You understand? Most times, the human beings are wired in a way that if they don't see any stubborn object on top of their head, they don't do what they're supposed to do. It's not like when you see traffic lights, you break it. It's because you just felt nobody's seeing you. So when there is these checks around, they will pay. There's no 50, those amounts pass through banks to get there. I think I would also say that most times, the people how much they earn unofficially are the rich ones. Yes. They might diversify it, but most of those money pass through accounts. And now you cannot, there's certain things you can't deny with your NIN and your account is streamlined, that the government can always see what you have and what are coming into your account. So it is easier now that almost whatever, if your NIN is put, every account you have will show. So it is easier to even actually collect in this moment than before.
Talk to us about the tribunal and the ombudsman. I hear this, we must take a break, but please keep the question and hold your thoughts. When we come back, you speak to us about that. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at the tax reform bill. We'll be right back.
Flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during internment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. NIN àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀. Mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀. Mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí tó dá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
Welcome to Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis, a TV series dedicated to aging and older persons in Nigeria. Be part of this series and discover the transformative programs crafted to give a new lease of life to our senior citizens, courtesy of the National Senior Citizen Center.
The National Senior Citizen Center is the oasis for the senior citizens.
For thought-provoking discussions on aging, geriatric social care, and issues that matter most to our senior citizens.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Silver Oasis.
Tune in to Silver Oasis on the network service of the NTA every Saturday at 10:05 p.m. Silver Oasis, improving the quality of lives of senior citizens.
Our major currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industry, industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're trying to make sense out of the tax reform bills, which of course will now be harmonized by the two arms of the National Assembly. I asked Professor Nnamchi, to explain, the roles and responsibilities of the tribunal and the ombudsman.
Well, the tribunal is I think, in such things, it's both ways. And the individual can approach it, but also government can also approach it. So also, when you have evaded tax, and they have found it electronically and all that what you said you've paid is less than what you earn is less than what you have paid. So it is the government will also drag you to the court. In as much as when you also feel that you have been unfairly taxed, you also have that right to go to the court to approach the ombudsman to make sure that those things are addressed and the tax paid back or the tax reduced, as the case may be. Because there will be, I want to envisage, there will be a lot of conflict. This is a new regime, a tax regime. There will be a lot of conflicts resulting from both companies, because especially the ones that are producing certain things. Let me give you an instance. There's some companies who are not exporting anything, but they have found themselves in this export processing zone. And they won't be taxed, but they'll just carry that in and come and sell in the markets. This is also, in this case, it is meant, companies being there, companies that are meant to export things. They are not being taxed because it is thought that they are export-free zones. There's a lot of those places today. Today, the government will now ask them to show them evidence of what they have been exporting and why, and also provide evidence of what they have been selling to the public without tax. This is some of those reasons. You also have companies that will feel that because all these thresholds will be what people start to manipulate, whether they are under or they are above. Even when people have gotten above, they will just claim they don't. This is what happens. But there's also civil servants that will also think that probably because they're taxed as civil servants, their business should not be taxed. But they are quite different. So this is encompassing. But you can also come there for also lodge your own complaints that they are being double taxed, like you're saying, people moving their goods to others. If there's no VAT in the agricultural produce, why not? You can come and lodge complaints, because these are also most things happen in the country because people don't go to court. So the moment people start going to court,
because they know they will it will either stay protracted and not get justice on time, or justice will be delayed. That's why people. No, there will be multiple. People are encouraged to seek, alternative ways of, dispute resolution. So you find that most people today, would rather, not go to court to resolve their issues. I'm just reacting to the point that you've talked. Yes.
But I also think that since this is going to be things that affect everybody, there will be multiple costs. But I also think that people will also find it difficult, because the ombudsman also will resolve certain conflicts. But at the same time, when that could not be done, you go to court, approach the court.
Assuming somebody, I don't want to mention a state, assuming somebody now is forced to pay a particular tax on, let's say, wheelbarrow or radio or television or something, and all that, can that individual approach the tribunal?
For radio? The radio tax is actually local government tax. You understand? I also have seen sometime in the past where they are contesting that with with the media houses. That it should be media house. Like in Germany, those things are classified. You pay for TV if you own a TV, even if it's not working. They tend to tax you for having it. Germany, for example, does that. But in Nigeria, it's not so. So these are different. But what I'm trying to say, what I could say in this is that the tribunal and the ombudsman has a lot to do. And remember, it has been removed now from the regular course that you will see that. So there will be easy dispersal of cases, and also it is easy for people to also, when you go and get justice, others will emulate. Why people don't go to court is because it is protracted. You also have to spend a lot to get there, and you also have to get a lawyer to defend you. But in this case with ombudsman, you can come yourself and do that. There's evidence. Financial things will always go with evidence and data. So it is easy. They go that based on that, they are easily dispersed.
Ishak, what do you think? Do you foresee hurdles here?
A lot of hurdles, because we have not exhausted our tax base. You buy a refrigerator from a departmental store, you are charged value-added tax. You buy a refrigerator in the marketplace, you don't charge. You buy a Tokumbo car at the car stand, no VAT. So keeping these books becomes necessary for each and every taxpayer. That is one of the things which I want government to look into, so that those who are to pay taxes, government can access them. That is one. Second, these multiple taxations that we are speaking, like what I was asked before, if you check, for instance, to transport agricultural produce from one locality to another or from one state to another, you are subjected to different local taxes. These local taxes are killing businesses. And also, there is need under this new administration to look into how to administer that. I think they have a great job to do. Above all, taxes can be called in different names. Payee, pay as you earn. CIT, whatever component. But the worst that is coming from financial institutions in the name of cost of transaction, transfer fees. Now we are aware that income above, below 800, it cannot be charged. But transfer of 1,000 naira, you are charged. So these are some of the intrigues that we have to look into to protect the vulnerables.
Many thanks, Isha Aliyu. Let's get to Professor Waleke now. Of course, I'd like to hear what you think the likely challenges will be, and then what measures should be put in place to ensure transparency and accountability in tax administration. Of course, that's what we're trying to solve. Hope we don't get a bigger problem with this one.
Yes, you're very correct. Of course, you know, what we're about to get is, if you like, call it disruptive in the sense that is a complete shift, particularly when you look at the Nigerian Revenue Service Bill that now says there should be just one central, collecting point. So it's a complete shift. Okay, so in terms of challenges, of course, the challenges will be there. The transition won't be easy. Transiting from FIRS, to Nigerian Revenue Service is not going to be easy at all, which is also why I think in terms of implementation, in a timeline, what we read earlier is supposed to kick in, July. I think is something that will require to be faced, okay? And if it is possible to pilot test, some of these reforms, tax reforms in some states before, rolling it out, nationally, I think that should be done. So I'm calling for a phased implementation of the law, of the new tax law, because that will require a lot of awareness. Consultation should also, be ongoing. As we speak, I'm aware that some sort of consultation is also happening. So the public engagement is there, enlightenment is there. The states, all the key stakeholders, should be made to understand, the objectives, how these things, should be implemented. Now, there is something I also want to mention here, with respect to particularly the VAT. Okay, the VAT, yes, the rate is being retained, but the VAT has also been reformed. Okay, in the way it is being implemented, in the way it is to be implemented, because the value-added tax is not being implemented the way it ought to be implemented. Okay, what is value-added tax? That when you okay, for example, under the current system, you know that food, educational materials are exempt. Even under the current system, they are exempt. Okay, now the exemption means that when you're there is no output VAT, let me put it that way, on them. That's the meaning of exemption. But the person producing these items may have also paid VAT when buying inputs for the production of those items, which you are now exempting. Okay, so he or she can transfer them to the ultimate consumer. So that also has a way of pushing up the price of what the person is selling. But under the reform, under the new one, those items are not, we don't say they're exempt. The new law says they are zero rated. Zero rated. Zero rated means they are expected to pay 0% VAT. And when you are zero rated, it means that you are now allowed to recover your input VAT. In the current situation, the person producing anything that is exempt from tax cannot recover input VAT. But under the new system, which is zero rated, so food items, medicals are now zero rated as opposed to the current exemption. So they can also now recover input VAT. So when you can recover your input VAT, whatever you paid as input VAT, you are now not going in a position to now say, because you're paying 0%. So what I'm saying is the reforms we are having in VAT, will ensure that it works well. Will also ensure that even the prices of good items, these basic items, are not really affected, by VAT.
Prof, thank you. And there are those, of course, a lot of businessmen. I read Muda. Dr. Muda's comment about this reform bill, he was quite optimistic. Yeah. Of course, that this will open up, businesses and, of course, access to credit and all that. But in terms of accountability on the part of government and, reducing leakages in tax collection, how might this happen? Yushao, let's start with you.
Accountability starts with integrity. Those who are to be appointed, we are expecting them to deploy the right technology. And by deploying the right technology also, by distribution. Principle of equity, that's equality. Principle of population. And then, above all, consumption has to do with, once this distribution is made, we are expecting state and local government that are the major beneficiaries to translate those taxes to the taxpayers, because in a local government they have the population. Accountability also will start from bureaucratic integrity. What I mean here is, let us shift from basing our budget with crude oil. We have the reform now. 2026 should be a test period, because we have seen how prices are destabilizing our fiscal intentions in 2025. So once, as suggested by Professor Waleke, we pace the implementation, and from there we also pace the accountability test from the authorities that will manage the revenue service to the officials who are going to benefit, because states are the beneficiaries, taking from the federal government the 5% added to their own. So that shows that they are to be more realistic in terms of service delivery.
All right, many thanks, Shirley. Professor Nnamdi, I would like to hear your final words as we begin to round off the conversation. What you expect from government, what you expect from the Nigerian Revenue Service, of course, you know, I mean, the center of all of this, and of course the Nigerian people to make all of this work.
First, I would say that we expect improved life conditions, because a lot of things will also be stable, like the food items. Well, I also know that there will be problems that the hotel will buy food and also charge you tax when there's no tax or tax to them, and they pass VAT that nobody charge them to you. These are things. There will be a lot of rigors, but I also think that there's need for change, and also people must be receptive about it. But it is for the good of the country. I also need, because you need amenities. All this will come from VAT, and this VAT, the current VAT is necessary. Current reform is necessary for the good of the country, because, as you say, we'll move from just what the normal oil revenue plug in and plug out, that goes. Then at the same time, also encourage also companies, our people to also know that there's need to pay tax.
In fact, just before we let you go, I have two messages, SMS. Will states that ban alcohol drinks benefit from VAT paid on alcohol in other states? What will be the status of NCC, Port Authority, Customs, Nigerian Local Content Board, and other revenue-generating agencies under the recently passed tax reform bill in terms of levies and other charges collected by these agencies? Bello Ahmad Sakoto.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, all those agencies, whether it's Customs, MPA, you know, and the rest of them, yes, they may be in a position to assess the tax, but the collection will be done by the Nigerian Revenue Service. So everything will be centrally collected, and as I said earlier on, it's meant to plug, you know, leakages and avoid duplications. Okay, in terms of you know, how to make it really work, there is a need to reduce the trust deficit, you know, that we have in the system, you know, by ensuring that, you know, I talked about a balance. So we are talking about revenues, which also be focused on the spending, how the revenues, you know, should be spent. So it's important that every kobo, you know, is well applied, and that's where that's when you can see a reduction in the trust deficit. Where we also saw what happened yesterday, which gives me hope that we are beginning to get it right. Yesterday, I'm talking about the Sukuk bond, the Sukuk that was issued by the federal government. For the first time, we were able to do 300 billion, you know, Sukuk. And we know Sukuk is purely project tied. So we know, you know where the money is going. You're borrowing, you also know it is for roads. Okay, so that is that's what the people want to see.
The approach.
The approach. It's not just borrowing and then, you know, we can't, you know, really pinpoint what it's being used for. So when we continue along this path, I'm sure we will be able to build trust. But in terms of accountability and transparency, it's important to have, maybe this time set up, there should be an oversight. You know, National Assembly should be empowered to oversight the implementation. Civil society groups should also be empowered to, you know.
All right, many thanks. And of course, I think there should be enforcement too. Those who evade tax.
I think also, what usually these agencies you mentioned, they return 40% of their earning, because they also self-sustaining. So government doesn't give them money. So, but what is necessary now is this 40%, 40%, and that's why the actual collection, the NRS will now come in to make sure that 40%
is 40%.
Is 40%. All right. Many thanks, Professor Paul Nnamdi, Member House Committee on Finance, Member House of Representatives, representing Indigo East and East Hills of Federal Constituency. It was a pleasure to have you on the program.
My pleasure too.
Thank you very much. Professor Uche Waleke, Professor of Capital Market, Nasarawa State University. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, we appreciate your insights. And of course, Joshua Liu, an economist and our regular guest. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, so that's our package.
That's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. Bye-bye.
And I'm Ian Ray John. Remain tuned to the NTA. See you tomorrow.